This story begins in the Brooklyn neighborhood of New York. Daniel has been married for 10 years, but he has yet to have the joy to hold a baby in his arms. His friends are constantly talking about schools for their children. They bring their sons to shul, they're getting them ready for their bar mitzvahs. They go on trips with their families and so on. But as for Daniel and his wife, they always spend Shabbos in the utmost calm. They're the only couple in the building who never took part in the kids' shows at school, family reunions, parent-teachers meetings. For Daniel's wife, every encounter with a friend is a nightmare. Every Shabbos spent in shul is a new source of pain. Daniel's not the type to reach out to big rabbanim to ask for a blessing. But at this point, he's so desperate, he's ready to move mountains to finally become a father. A friend of his suggests that he goes to see Rabbi Yisrael Avram Portugal, very well-known rabbi in Brooklyn who has the reputation to attract Jews from all backgrounds. With him, everyone has the opportunity to open up his heart to receive a blessing and comfort. When the day arrives after waiting a long time in line, Daniel explains the situation to the rabbi, including every detail in the hope of hearing words of comfort to appease his sorrow. The rabbi listens carefully to him, he looks at him, and instead of blessing him, he says, "When there's conflict, there's no blessing." Disturbed, Daniel thinks that the rabbi may have misunderstood what he was here for, and he repeats his story again briefly. After all, he hadn't mentioned any conflict or dispute. But once again, the rabbi repeats the same sentence. Where there is conflict, there is no blessing. Confused and somewhat disappointed, Daniel can't sleep that night. He spends long hours pacing the dining room trying to think what conflict the rabbi was referring to. He's not the type to seek disputes, gets along well with his wife and entourage, and he can't remember fighting with his neighbor. In brief, this so-called conflict is a mystery. And then all of a sudden, the name of Yitzchak Fishman comes back to him, and the memories start pouring in. At the time, they were both very popular in school. Each one was leading a group of followers which admired them blindly. But of course, since there couldn't be two kings wearing one crown, Daniel and Yitzchak were natural enemies, and they were making each other's lives miserable. Jokes, insults, and intimidations were pouring in on both sides. This power struggle lasted for 4 years, but in this type of game, there are no winners. All that they had won were 4 years of hostilities, suffering, and mutual humiliations. Only bad memories. The day on which they had received their diplomas at the end of the final year, Yitzchak admitted to Daniel that he would never forgive him for the wrong he had done to him. Daniel had answered him with arrogance that he was happy finally to get rid of him, that he never wished to see him again. The least that can be said is that they hadn't left on good terms. Daniel then starts the difficult task of finding his former enemy. He's convinced that he must ask him forgiveness, although he knows that this will be the most embarrassing moment of his life. After making a few calls, he finally finds Yitzchak Fishman's address and phone number. He's now located in Los Angeles. He hesitates whether or not he should call him, but finally decides that the only way to make peace is to take a plane to go see him in person. After all, if there's a chance to put an end to his suffering, it is worth it. So the next day, Daniel flies to Los Angeles, praying the entire time that everything will go well. He has no idea what he will tell Yitzchak when he sees him after all these years, so he hopes that Hashem will help him to find the words that will touch his heart. He gets to the airport, rents a car, and drives with reluctance towards Yitzchak's house. The closer he gets to his destination, the more his stress increases, and the more he wants to return home. But he knows that if he gives up now, he'll regret it for the rest of his life. When he parks in front of his house, his entire body is shaking. He goes to the door, closes his eyes, holds his breath, and knocks. He's so nervous that he wishes Yitzchak is not home. Then his heart almost stops when he hears, "Who's there?" Daniel doesn't answer. He's petrified. The door opens up gently, and then Daniel doesn't even have a time to say a word. Yitzchak screams, "Who gave you the right to come here? Get out of here right away before I call the cops. I never want to see you here again." With great difficulty, Daniel answers, "Please, wait, let me explain. I came from New York especially to speak with you." But stubbornly, Yitzchak answers, "I don't care where you're coming from. I just want you to get out of my life. I thought I made that clear years ago." At this point, Daniel bends on his knees and starts crying. "Please, I'm begging you, just give me a few seconds." Touched by this scene, Yitzchak calms down a little bit before saying, "Okay, I'm listening, but hurry up so we can get this over with fast." Daniel tells him everything while crying. The fact that he doesn't have children over 10 years of marriage, his visit to the rabbi, and what he told him about the conflict and its consequences. He finishes his story saying, "I came here to ask you for forgiveness. I want to make peace with you." Yitzchak remains silent for a while, wipes away a tear as well, and he tells him the following, "You know, it's the same situation for me. I've been married for many years and I'm still childless." Daniel is shocked. He wasn't expecting such a revelation. This wasn't easy, but Daniel and Yitzchak ended up forgiving one another, and 1 year later they both had the joy to become parents. Incredible, but true. Yes, the power of dispute is the most dangerous one in the world. Unless we find the inner strength to forgive, has the capacity to block divine blessings indefinitely. Even if it's not always easy, we must be able to make shalom, to receive the blessing in our household and in our lives. It's so worth it. Shabbat Shalom.